Hey, how's it going all? Just back with another video. I wanted to talk about America and Babylon. So, man, I woke up to a bunch of videos that Pastor Anderson or Sanderson, I can't remember if his YouTube channel is called Sanderson 1611. Um, and he's like I think he's in Arizona. He's looks like he's independent. He comes across independent. Um, I've seen some videos where he's very ambiguous about what the mark of the beast is, and but he's very much looks like he's pushing in his last few videos in particular that America is Babylon, which is exciting. Not that we need anybody else to affirm that it is. It's very obvious to those who God has revealed it to that it has to be America. I mean, it's if it's in the modern day that the end times are happening, and that's a point I want to talk about that he makes in this 1 minute clip that I'll play. But I just think it's amazing, really, how that God is able to give people certain knowledge, and this is an incredible thing that is maybe even more incredible than almost anything else that God has done. It's like once we get past the fact that He can create things out of thin air, which is incredible. Basically he's a mind controller. He's able to limit what people know, and that effectively limits what they can say and the things that they can do. And he's able to partition wisdom, and truth, and dispense it to whoever and whomever he wants in whenever he wants. And so, it looks like he's pushing partial truth, like I feel like what I honestly feel like everybody's doing. And really anybody who claims to have all of it, that hurts your case, just by saying that. So that eliminates a lot of people, because for whatever reason, especially here in America, everybody seems really big on having 100% of everything, and as if they're going to get brownie points for that. But anyway, so he's very clear about his understanding and teaching about America being Babylon, and it's good to reaffirm what we already know. But it's amazing how God can put this truth in his mind that America is on the verge of potentially being blown up. If the modern day is the end times, because then Babylon would have to be one of the countries that exist, but able to allow him to dilute his understanding, or falsify it totally on the chip, being the mark of the beast. And also, he believes that all Jewish people from now and in history are the synagogue of Satan. He believes that anybody who's Jewish who doesn't convert to quote unquote Christianity is the synagogue of Satan. Which it's not actually true. We know now that the real Jews, at least what their complexion will look like, and many of them are the so-called Negroes here in America. And the synagogue of Satan is the Jewish people, predominantly the Jewish people in Israel. But even amongst them, it's very possible that God has scattered a true Israelite, a true Jew in and amongst the synagogue of Satan, who we would think are candidates for the synagogue of Satan. So he's off on some things, that are very, very important. So, just be wary of that. But let me just play it's only a minute clip, and then let me point out a couple things about, pastors like this.
Now, I will say this, and I'm going to prove to you in a lot of other ways that I believe this is talking about America. I will say this: if the events of end time Bible prophecy don't happen for hundreds of years, if the world's not going to end for a few hundred more years, then maybe it's not America. But if this happens anytime soon, and when I say this, I mean all the events of Revelation, the tribulation, the rapture, God's wrath. If that stuff happens in our generation, I'll guarantee you that Revelation 18 is talking about America. You know, you would have talked to me several hundred years ago, not that I was alive or around, but you know, if I would have existed several hundred years ago and you would have talked to me, I would have said, hey, this is all about, you know, the Roman Catholic Church or something, you know, because obviously at that time the world was in a different place. But today, in the
So guys, I don't know if you heard that, but that's the main point that I wanted to bring out was, this is he's kind of giving himself up as a false prophet, and what's he saying? He's saying if he would have been around a few hundred years ago, he would have said that Babylon is something else, and that just proves that he's basically speculating, and a prophet is not someone who speculates. A prophet is someone who has been given information, divine, revelation, and then now is entrusted to go and speak it beforehand, and then that will come to pass, and so, he could kind of say, well, I'm not a prophet, I'm just a preacher, and that's fine, but then that pretty much means you should be hands off the book of Revelation. If that's not for you, if you're more of a day-to-day pastor or minister kind of thing, you can't dip your hand into the prophet bucket, and Revelation is just one of the books that involve prophecy, but it's exclusively about the future, and it will always be about the future until it happens. So it's just not, and just his terminology, his wording of saying, if he was, around a few hundred years ago, he doesn't have an understanding of reincarnation, that's biblical. And so, I've never seen him talk about that with any kind of, clarity or anything. So that alone is kind of a ding. But the most important thing is that, he was saying that if he was around back in the day, he would be trying to label Babylon as something else, and he would be speculating, and so we never want to speculate about these things. It's like God, again, decides exactly what we know, and what he chooses to tell us or reveal to us in whatever way that he chooses, and he makes us dumb or smart, and that's up to him, and we have to keep asking, pleading for more and more information and wisdom. But obviously, just using common sense, he's obviously only going to give it to people who are not going to go and abuse it, or he's going to give it to them knowing they'll abuse it, and that's what he wanted, And so this, to me, he's giving this pastor Anderson or whatever, Sanderson, fragmented truth, and he has a following of people who have no issues hating America, and he's very outspoken about that. He for some reason softens when it comes to the economy. It's like he'll talk about America being blown up, but then in the next breath say, oh, the economy's great, there are lots of jobs, don't be lazy. Which is satanic advice. It's like there's no one who should talk about, in one breath, God hating America so much that he's planning to blow it up with missiles and soon, potentially, and then in the next breath say, don't be lazy, there are lots of jobs, the economy's great. It's like those two things don't make any sense. There's no way that you can have a functioning, healthy economy and God hate the place completely. It's like, I'm not saying, that just means that God loves it if the economy's great and functioning and stuff, but there's something righteous about a functioning economy. It can't be all evil. Like, our economy is a complete joke. It's totally satanic. It's void of creativity, and the Most High is a creator. He is by definition a creative being. So why would he not want his people to be creative, and that to be one of the hallmarks, the landmarks, the foundation of anything that they do, And we have people with masters and PhDs degrees riding Lyft and Uber, and we have talented women, and female Israelites, a lot of them, who are stripping and dancing, and just doing degenerate hourly jobs, getting paid peanuts, and this whole system is void of creativity, all the leaders, all they're paid to do is lie on conference calls and just pretend like everything's great when it's not, and just keep squeezing people for more and more and more. And all the stock market and everything is based on gambling. It's just betting. One thing goes up or down. It's literally like just a massive casino, and the winners win big and the losers lose a lot. So this whole thing is completely evil, and it worries me when people don't talk about that. So credit to the groups that do, in particular GMS. Even though I'm pretty hard on those guys, they have no hesitation, talking about how evil everything is here from A to Z. It still shocks me that they would be hung up on the fact that the system, the very evil system, is accurate though on the shape of the Earth, which is preposterous to me. But that's just what it is. But this these pastors, and these pastors who are kind of like moonlighting as prophets, you have to be very careful about that, because when things come from God, they're going to come in a certain way. This guy uses a lot of humor. He kind of tries to come across like he's very, very logical, and trustworthy and this and that. But whenever something comes from God, it has to be very, very pure. It can't be sarcastic. It can't be, you're an idiot, and like, why are you believing in this? Or kind of feeling the need to disrespect someone else, or to belittle someone else, or to like make something seem a certain way. It's like God would use people wherever they are in the world, and it honestly doesn't seem like there's anybody who are very pure with housing information and then having a very pure desire to share it, and for no emotional or financial or any kind of gain or even spiritual gain. They're oblivious to that. Even though there are many verses that talk about rewards for doing that type of work, it's just a person who is just literally a vessel to temporarily or hopefully permanently house truth and information and then distribute it, to the masses, and that's all that they're concerned about, and it's not a show. Yeah, it's not like there's not hoopla surrounding it. And this guy, to me, is giving himself away by saying that if he was in a different generation, he would be speculating something incorrectly. Well, how do we know that you're not speculating anything incorrectly right now? And just because, he is correct, or we feel he's correct. He's correct. Not the way he words it is. I give him credit for this though. Is that he's very humble in his understanding of America being Babylon, because we don't know for sure that the end times are now. God could wipe the whole earth off, through whatever means, or leave a few people and then rebuild it all back up and then have a new Babylon sometime down the road, and rebuild a new history and have the stuff fulfill prophecy sometime down the road, hundreds of years from now. Anything's possible with God. Is that likely? No, because there's so many things that are converging, and really the earth is unlivable, just from the ecosystem of it. But God could rebuild it up and replenish it and do whatever he wants. So it's good that he's saying that, and I give him credit for, and this makes sense the way God would do it. He would make false prophets not obvious, like he's not going to just make everything they say wrong. It's like, then that could be very, very easy. It's the same with Elder Tahar and GMS. Like, they're right on the chip. I feel they're bang on the chip being the mark of the beast, and really it's obvious to me that it is. Just like it's obvious that for anybody who studies this even mildly, that America would fulfill the prophecy of being modern day Babylon. But there's a lot of other things that they're very, very wrong on and very evil, and huge implications. Like Pastor Anderson, doesn't believe or doesn't teach that the RFID microchip is the mark of the beast. That has very strong implications, serious implications for people who follow him potentially down that road. And the leaders at GMS are very, very lax when it comes to obeying the law. They claim that the law is still in effect, but they will actively teach that just committing all types of sexual sin, and just almost proud of it. It's it's evil. It's like even the mainstream churches, the quote unquote harlot houses, they would not teach that. They teach a certain level of purity and all that, and so that has implications, for people who, use that teaching to take liberties to do things, and all that kind of stuff. So that's not a place that's not a position that I would want, and then have influence over other people who are then going to make decisions based on a mindset that is satanic. And so it's just again, beware of these false prophets, and a prophet and someone who heals. You would think that those are the two very, very sacred, places where, you house power and information that have a huge impact on other people, and you're making the very, very bold statement that God has ordained it, and if for God to ordain and be in certain places with certain people, maybe the person can't be pure 24/7, 365, but in that moment when they're teaching and sharing or healing, um, there has to be a preparation. There has to be a purity there. Like when a person is healing, you would not think that God would use someone who's just been involved in fornication, just got out of the bed, having sex with another man's wife. You wouldn't think that God would be like, yeah, you're gonna go heal someone that day. There, of course not. That's ridiculous to think that would be something that God would do. Could he choose to do that? Absolutely. But does that seem consistent with his character and something he would do regularly? Absolutely not. And so it's the same with someone who's teaching. Would God use somebody who's using the platform to uplift themselves, to amplify themselves, to gain a greater following, to have the time to practice their comedy routine, which this guy uses comedy a lot. And GMS use comedy a lot too. That's not what it's for. That's not the way that God, or the vessel that God would typically use to distribute information that is literally of a life or death nature.